The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heartthrob in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you June 26, 2024. Recording this late June 26 on a Wednesday night. Solo episode, first one in about probably 10 days. Thank you guys for listening, subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/at Earnest Christian. Of course, he also gets on the audio side too as well too. Subscribe to any audio podcast catcher, whether it's Apple Music, Amazon, Google Play, whatever's out there. I might have lost track of the new podcast platforms out there, third-party platforms out there, but wherever it is, you'll find Earnestly Podcast on there. Thank you so much for listening to the show. First off, I want to shout out the last episode we did that we actually recorded last week, but we actually dropped it yesterday. Of course, you guys know yesterday was the 15-year anniversary. Well, I say anniversary, 15 years since the death of Michael Jackson. You guys know how much MJ means to me, and I brought on two old friends of mine I've known for nearly a quarter century. We met through that MJ world. People who two friends of mine who met Michael, spent time with Michael for many times. They're on the show. We had a great time on that. The feedback on the episode has been amazing. I thank guys for to check out the episode. Of course, we did a MJ song draft on there. We did a couple other things we talked about on there as well too. Their experiences with Michael and whatnot. But it was a very good episode. We really enjoyed recording that one. And just check it out on the feed. It's out there already. Like I said, the number's been really good on that one. Really appreciate you guys truly downloading those, subscribing those to the feed and all that. Really appreciate that. We're also got another special episode, and we can do a lot of these, especially this summer. A lot of these special episodes, which I recorded last night actually, and that'll be dropping on Sunday. I recorded the 25-year anniversary of The Sopranos with two of my good friends and coworkers. We'll drop that episode on Sunday morning. Check it out on the feed when you get a chance on the YouTube page as well as the podcast catchers and all that. So that was another fun episode we did on there. We actually did a couple topics on the show, and then we did an actual 8-round character draft as well too. So you see kind of a little bit of a pattern there. I like drafting things. I know I love ranking things a lot. But I also love drafting things, doing drafts and stuff. So you may see a little bit of pattern this summer. I know I'm planning a couple other episodes of surrounding things I want to draft. So you'll see a little bit of pattern this summer with that in the coming weeks and whatnot. But anyway, let's get to the solo episode here. We got a lot of things on top about. I'm gonna get off my chest. You got the Trump-Biden debate, the first one coming up. Well, by the time this podcast, it'll be today. But it will be tomorrow night. Lots of things I want to review. I got a bunch of things I want to review because I've been watching a lot of content the last couple of weeks. To be honest, I've just watched a lot of content since the summer started, and that's kind of been like my theme this summer: is catching up on old content, and I've also started some new content. And then I'm going to read off this week's QOTWs that I had set up about a week ago. When if I reveal some of those responses on there, but I want to start here first. Living locally in South Florida. Things are very happy. The mood is great for the most part because the Florida Panthers, the hockey team, NHL Florida Panthers, win their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. Now, it got a little testy because they're up 3-0 in the series against Edmonton. Edmonton storms back, ties the series. Game 7 goes to Florida, and it's a tight game. Game 7, and they barely hold on 2-1. First Stanley Cup in franchise history. I gotta say, on a personal level, my hockey fandom is returned. I have to say it's returned. And not because the Panthers. I mean, I do like the Panthers. They're not my favorite team, obviously. You guys know I'm a fan of the New York Rangers. I've been a New York Rangers fan for about 32, 33 years now. I'm born in New York, so that's my allegiance. But I also been living in South Florida now since 1989. So we're looking at what, do the math there, 35 years now. So I've pretty much ingratiated myself to liking these sports teams. I like the Dolphins. I'm a Giants fan, but I like the Dolphins. I'm a Mets fan, but I like the Marlins. I'm a Rangers fan, but I like the Panthers. The only South Florida team that I'm very passionate about, which you guys already know this. It's not a surprise to you guys. And it actually happens to be my favorite sports franchise in all of sports, no matter what it is, the Miami Heat. And you can argue the Miami Heat is the reason why I've become much more appreciative of the teams in this market. And I have a lot of close friends of mine who are kind of upset. Some close friends of mine are like upset that, oh, well, you're on the bandwagon and this and that. And I'm like, stop. Ain't that serious, brother. Ain't that serious. I'm happy for this market. Right. I love the fact that the Panthers are very supportive of the Heat. And when they go down in the playoffs and they're, tweeting things about to the Heat franchise, what they're doing, and vice versa. The Heat did a thing on their social media after Game 7 on Monday. Congratulations to the Panthers, whatnot. That kind of camaraderie. It ain't that serious though, man. I appreciate this team in this market. I do appreciate them. I root for them. Because I like this market more than anything else to be a heavy market. People are excited about sports. For a long time. For a very long time. The Heat has been the only team in this market that's been consistently great for the last 25, almost 30 years. The Heat have carried this market for the last 25 years, 30 years. Dolphins have only now gotten better in the last couple seasons. The Panthers now in the last 5 years, 6 years have been a consistent playoff team. The Marlins have been pretty bad for the most part. They've won 2 World Series, and other than a weird playoff berth, I think 4 years ago during COVID, they've been relatively bad. The Miami Hurricanes in college football has been bad for about 20 years now, pretty meh at best. So, this has been a very, say, mid sports market for the most part across the board. It's certainly like Boston, Boston, Massachusetts, and what they're doing. The Patriots have been great for a long time until recently. The Celtics have won a title. The Bruins have been really good for a long time. The Red Sox up until a couple of years ago were a really, really, really good baseball team. So I like to see this. I root for this market more than anything else. That's where my heart is. And I think that being a Heat fan did that for me. But more than anything else too. Also, the Panthers win this Stanley Cup, which is great. Shout out to my boy Matt Fagan, aka Superfan. He's actually retiring his Superfan moniker after I think 20-something years. Look, I'll challenge anybody out there. There's no bigger Panthers fan out there I've ever seen in my entire life than that dude. But he's actually retiring. He actually decided when the year started that this would be his last year being Superfan, and go figure. I actually like to get him on the podcast if possible. He's actually also a coworker of mine. His last ever, game in the moniker of Superfan is the game. You can't script that any better. So shout out to him and all the Panther fans out here celebrating still. Parades on Sunday. I'm not going to parade, so I mean, I'm not. Look, I don't mind. When the Heat won the titles, when the 3 titles, I didn't go to parade either. So I'm not going to deal with that Heat, that hot ass sun. Sorry, I ain't dealing with that. But the thing that I come away from this now as we wrap up the NHL season now, because now we're in the dead period of sports right now. Before football comes back, well, now we still got baseball, and the Mets playing was good baseball for the record. Which we'll touch on that in the days to come. I think my hockey fandom has come back. I don't think you guys know, but I do like hockey, but I'm not, a hardcore guy. Like I don't watch I follow, sport. I follow my team on the Rangers, of course, but I am not hardcore. And a lot of reasons why with that is because I'm a diehard NBA guy, not just with the Heat. I watch all 30 teams. I'm locked in League Pass every night, watching the Kings and the Clippers. Doesn't matter, and I'm watching that stuff till like past midnight. So it's hard. My time is obviously not as open as it has been, as it used to be before kids and family and all that. So you got to pick and choose the things you want to watch. So, the NHL season, the NBA season runs really perpendicular to each other. It starts the same time, and same time pretty much. So that makes it hard. And then it also it was a lockout or a strike. I remember it was a lockout or a strike in 2004. That killed the momentum, because I used to be a hardcore guy back in the 90s. When I was growing up as a teenager, I used to watch all the games on ESPN. I was on the Rangers, but I thought the Red Wings were fun to watch. Steve Yzerman, the Penguins. Wasn't a fan of the Penguins. Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr, those boys. So I was locked in back in the 90s, man. I was I have to credit Blaze of Steel, the old Nintendo game that got me into hockey as a kid. But somewhere along the line, in my mid late 20s, I just stopped watch. I don't think I say stop watching. I still followed it, but I was not nowhere hardcore. It was definitely a distant fourth in my list of sports I watch. The leagues I watch. And NFL, NBA, baseball, and then NHL was a distant fourth. And really, in the last couple of years, NHL coming back to relevance in America. Getting back, on NBC years ago, and then now it's on ESPN again for the first time in a long time. And then seeing the ratings go up too, especially too, and in interest also. The NHL's postseason is probably, I think it's probably, the NHL postseason is the best and most competitive postseason of all the four major sports here, or four major leagues here in America. That's a fact. And I feel like these last couple of years, especially too, my fandom has kind of returned. So now the question is going to be, how do I balance next year watching regular season hockey and the NBA? How do I navigate that? Do I end up getting the NHL package and watching, and adding that to my docket of things to watch? Who knows? That could be on the table. So I will say that. I will say as much as that my hockey fandom has definitely returned. I think the only hard part now for me is following players. Like, obviously, who the goalies are and the players you watch in your team, whatever. But once I get names down again, consistently seeing names again, I think I'll be back in a big way. But yeah, the NHL also it's come back in a way where it's relevant now in a big way in America again, since first time in 20-something years. And I think the only thing left for the NHL to accomplish, really, to make the NHL back on a close level of the NBA and Major League Baseball, in the mainstream, is finding ways to market these stars. Find a way to market Connor McDavid. Find a way to market all these great players in the NHL that don't have a name in the mainstream. Can they do that? That's the question. That's the challenge there for the NHL. Find ways to market these big stars, and if they can do that, they'll have a great chance. Because remember, in the 90s, they still had, even though Wayne Gretzky had been playing 10 plus years, he was still a big name and he was still marketable. And it's you had Mario Lemieux, you had Mark Messier, you had all these great stars, Steve Yzerman, you name it, all these great goalies. Patrick Waugh, you had semi-marketable guys that those names kind of translated to the sports. Can you do it now in the 2024 and beyond? That's the challenge. That is a challenge, and we'll see how that goes going forward. But yeah, so the NHL's back, man. I'm really excited about the season next year. I definitely will be watching even more teams next year. Shout out to my boy Big Jim. We'll probably talk more hockey on this podcast probably as we next year if you get back. I saw by the way, I saw the odds for next year, title odds. Obviously Edmonton, who lost the Stanley Cup, they are the favorites next year. They got I think it's plus 800 for Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup next year. I know plus 900 was the Dallas Stars, and then plus 1,000 third was the Panthers. And I think the reason the Panthers was lower than these two teams, even though being the defending champion going to next year, is that the Eastern Conference is much tougher to get through than the West. So I think their odds are a little bit lower just solely because of the trek to get to the Stanley Cup next year. It's a little bit tougher for the Panthers. Like I said, this is a big, long road for these guys. This core has been together for a couple of years. They've been consistent for 5 years. Good. President's Cup trophy 2 years ago. Then they went to the Stanley Cup last year before losing to Vegas, and now this year they finally get to the mountaintop. And so I'm really proud of this team. And we'll see how it goes next year. Hopefully, Rangers finally snap that 30 plus year streak of no championships. I mean, it's been a while now. I mean, we got to the Cup like back in 2014, and since then it's been meh. So anyway, let's see. As far as NBA, offseason's here. We've now been away from basketball for more than a week since the Celtics clinched their first title since 2008. A lot of moves being made in the NBA already. The Knicks and the Nets with a blockbuster, I guess I'm going to call it blockbuster trade, swapping draft picks for Mikal Bridges, who's now a Knick. It's a big move. Also news on the Knicks end too as well today. The Knicks, OG Anunoby intends to sign his 4-year, $230 million offer on the table. I think it's 4 or 5 years, maybe 5 years actually. So obviously the question is going to be this: these moves now, you lock in OG, you get Mikal Bridges for picks. This team was 1 game away from going to the conference finals. Got banged up in the series late. I guess Indiana in the second round of playoffs. This is 2 years in a row they've gone this far. They've made it this far to the second round of playoffs. So where does this team stand? Do they measure up against the Boston Celtics here? I think, are they a title contender? Now, you guys know how I define title contender is a team. Do I see X team playing at least in the conference finals of their respective conference? Yes. So the Knicks are, because to me, it's the Celtics number one, without a question. But to me, right now, these moves, in my opinion, puts them on level with Milwaukee, puts them on level with Philadelphia, in my opinion. Now, we got to see what Philadelphia does. Obviously, they got one max slot, which likely they're going to go after Paul George, and that can change some things in the Eastern Conference. We'll see how it goes. But if you're asking right now, Ernest Christian, if you're asking right now, do you see the New York Knicks with this roster right now playing for a chance to go to the NBA Finals next year? Absolutely. I think this team with Jalen Brunson has shown now in these 2 years of being here that he is definitely, this is his team. He's one of the better players in this league. He's going to be higher on my top 25 list when we do that list back in going into the fall. Yeah, they're definitely going to be a title contender, going forward. Now, are they better in Boston? No. Now, if Boston, the key here for Boston is health. If Boston's healthy, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference and are a favorite to repeat next year. As long as their core four, of Tatum and Brown and Drew Holiday, and especially Kristaps Porzingis. When Porzingis is healthy, that's huge. That's huge. So if their core four is intact, they're hard to beat no matter what. But if one of those guys go out, especially Porzingis, for example, goes out, like he missed part of the playoffs, that could bring Boston down a little bit of a notch down and may give them next a chance to win that series. But I will still put Boston ahead of everybody. I still Boston's a clear number one in the Eastern Conference. We also had last week Alex Caruso and Josh Giddey swap OKC Chicago trade. I like the move for OKC. It's not the move though, because OKC's priority really should be getting a big man. One of their problems this year, despite being number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference this year, or Western Conference rather this year, was not having size, which cost them in the Dallas series, the second round of playoffs. They need size. As good as Chet Holmgren is, he is not big enough. They need size in the middle. But Alex Caruso at least brings intangibles. He brings leadership. He's definitely a good guy to have in the locker room. But OKC's priority, I don't know if they find it in a draft or if they'll find it in free agency, their number 1 priority this year, this offseason, should be getting size, beefing up that front court. There's also rumors too, also in the NBA that, now not that it's out there, but Stephen A. Smith today on First Take speculated that he's hearing rumors that Kevin Durant might be out in Phoenix, and not because he wants to, but because the Phoenix Suns may want to move him. And people are going to say, well, why would you do that? This is only his first full year in Phoenix. Why would you want to move him? He had a great year this year. But look at the Suns. They underwhelmed massively this year in the regular season, number 1. Number two, in the playoffs, they got swept. And then I truly believe that, with this new CBA, the second apron with these contracts, and Phoenix right now has three guys of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker tying up their entire salary structure. They don't have any space to make any moves to fill out the roster, and they're way too top heavy, and it costs them. It's why I argue it's why they got embarrassed in the playoffs. And if they're going to fill up the roster with quality players spread out as such, they got to move one of those guys. And I don't know if they want to move Devin Booker. Devin Booker's the younger one of the two. Bradley Beal's value is really low because he can't stay healthy. So Kevin Durant will be the odd man out there. Now, does it happen? I don't know, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that Kevin Durant would be on the outs if Mike, is it Mike, whatever his name is, Ishbia, the owner for the Suns, Ishbia is his last name. It doesn't surprise me if this is true. Again, Stephen A. Smith, is sourced up, but does it happen? I don't know. But I'll give it a 50-50 chances of this being a thing out there where I think ultimately Kevin Durant does play in Phoenix this next year, but I do think depending where Phoenix is in the standings next year before the All-Star break, before the trade deadline, if the Suns are not playing well and they're middling in the play-in situation, and it's pretty obvious that they're not going to compete with Denver and Minnesota and the teams in the Western Conference, regardless of what happens, I think there's a very good chance that Kevin Durant will get moved. I don't remember if Kevin Durant does have has a no trade clause. If I'm not mistaken, I know he didn't have one in his Brooklyn contract, on his last Brooklyn contract. We'll see if he has it in this Phoenix one. I don't know exactly. Don't quote me on that. Of course, as we speak too, also the NBA draft is going on too. Also, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Obviously I'll see who Miami drafts tonight. Everybody said, what about Bronny James? I don't care. I already said in the last solo episode that the Bronny James LeBron thing, it to me zero interest in that whatsoever. I don't care if Bronny goes to LA or whatever. I don't think the guy's ready to honestly play on the NBA level. This is my opinion. So there's that. Let's see. All right, let's talk about Stephen A. Smith. So we've even touched on this a little bit for the last couple months about, even last year, honestly, like we've been talking, I'll tease it, a little bit on the show that, he has a new contract. His contract's to be up soon in the next year or two. Well, supposedly his starting price in negotiations is at $18 million. I know it was per year. I imagine it's per year. Some places are reporting that it could be his starting point could be as high as $25 million annually for his new contract for ESPN. A lot of folks they read that and they're like laughing about it because Stephen A. Smith now in 2024, as talented as he is and he's as well known as he has been for a long time, he's the face of ESPN. Obviously, a lot of people like at least what I read on the internet and on on God's internet, of course I call it. Don't think he's worth that kind of money. A lot of people find him very polarizing, and whatnot. And doesn't matter what political spectrum you want to also, because he even dabbles into politics also once in a while. Find him very polarizing, And I get some of the disdain of Stephen A. Smith now because if you look at Stephen A. Smith from 2006 versus now, hell, even 2012 versus now, it's definitely a bit of a caricature. I mean, but it's also a where the business is in now, where the business is at now, presently. But here's the thing. I'm going to sit and defend Stephen A. I don't care. Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to sit and say he's worth that kind of money. I don't know. I don't know ESPN's books at the end of the day. I don't know what is the value of a personality and money and actual money it brings to a company. But this is what I will say. Stephen A. Smith. When you look at the numbers on YouTube, for example, like all the clips of YouTube. For example, a First Take and anything that Stephen A. pops up in, all their highest viewed videos on their page are mostly all by videos that he is a part of, or he is the central figure in those discussions on First Take, on guest spots, you name it. So you sit here and laugh about Stephen A. and everybody's laughing about, oh, wow, well, he ain't worth this kind of money. He sucks. And get rid of him. That I don't think you understand how making money works. Stephen A. Smith, for as much as people may hate this guy today, still makes that company a lot of money. And there is no question, this is not up for debate either. He is by far the hardest working personality on that network. Okay, forget the fact he has his own show that's not ESPN related. His Stephen A. Smith show. That's his own project, his own his production company, all that. But even within the realms of ESPN, he is still very active. Sometimes to a fault. I feel like him being too active. I think sometimes it gets to the point he's like a little bit overexposed in times. But needless to say, the reason why ESPN puts him out there on all these platforms, whether it's First Take or Sports Center hit here or NBA Countdown here or whatever show, the Stephen A's watch along thing he does on once in a while for the NBA season or even for football sometimes. It's because he is the gas for that company. He is the number one personality in that company. And people who love him obviously love him, but even the people who hate him, you're still watching him, which means you're still adding to the problem. So if you're someone who hates this news that Stevens is going to get richer now with a bigger deal now, probably the biggest deal in history of sports media, you're not really helping the situation. You're helping your argument by not by watching them, because you're only adding to the reason why they should pay him, whether it's $18 million or $25 million. So stop watching them. I always say that. If you don't like someone or personality or radio, stop watching them. That's how you get rid of these guys. But I'm not encouraging, of course. So look, I think based on where ESPN is, based also where ESPN has been going, and based on the numbers that we see, the vague numbers we see, the simple numbers we see, the engagement, for example, he's worth the money. He is, because whether or not you love him or hate him, he still moves the needle. He's a needle. Stephen A. Smith is a needle mover. In the world of sports media, Stephen A. Smith is a needle mover. And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. So tonight or tomorrow, well, when you hear this podcast, it'll be tonight. We finally get the first installment of the Donald Trump, Joe Biden presidential debate. The first one on CNN. Things I'm looking for. On the Joe Biden end, because obviously he's the current president. He's the incumbent president right now. I'm curious as to how he defends his record. See, one of the things I'm looking for in this debate, I know people expect to be a mess, and obviously Trump and Biden, two old guys. One is 81 and one is 78. Look, most people don't want these two guys. Regardless of where you sit on the spectrum of politics, most people would rather have two other candidates. But we're here, and this is what we voted for in the primaries. So we say that, but then we still vote for these guys as in the primaries, whatever. On the Biden end of things, I'm curious as to him defending his record. Because obviously we got to see, because a lot of Democrats say that he's done so much, the most we've seen in a 4-year term since FDR in 1930s. We hear that, but can he defend that record? How he looks, how does he look? Does he look cognizant? Obviously he low bar 4 years ago. And Trump did that because Trump lowered the bar, but Joe Biden actually did very well in those debates. Actually, 4 years ago, but again, low bar set. Donald Trump, to his credit, has not lowered the bar this time. Donald Trump is coming to this a little bit of reverse now. So you want to know if Joe Biden can find a way to be cognizant, number one, defend his record. The record that people claim that he's not doing, or Democrats claim that he is doing, should I say. I am curious also on the Gaza issue, because that, to me, the Gaza issue might be the thing that undoes his campaign. If he loses this, in my opinion, if Joe Biden loses his election in November, it's because of the Gaza issue. Because to me, I've already said it's a no-win situation for him. No-win situation, because on both sides. And then with Trump, can Donald Trump stop talking about the rigged election? If Donald Trump wants to bring back moderates and independents into his fold, he's got to stop. He's got to stop talking about the rigged election. It's over. You're here now. Okay, you're up for a chance to get back your seat you lost 4 years ago. Get over it. The data shows that whenever you talk about rigged elections, and you keep talking about, and you have other candidates for other seats in this country, House of Representatives, senators, Senate seats, election deniers for that matter, it doesn't work. So if you're Donald Trump, stop talking about the rigged election. Stop it. Okay, that's the one main thing I think Trump needs to do to clear even a chance. And also, can you be a unifier? Because most people don't look at you as such. There are people, even people who like you. They like you mostly because of the economy. You put money in the pockets, if you're rich, especially too. And I get that. You vote your interest, you vote your policy, which again, it benefits you. So I'm not going to knock you for that, obviously. Most of us vote based on what our priorities are, personally. And that's what you should be doing, to be honest with you. I mean, people hate me saying that, but the people who hate me saying that do the same damn thing also themselves. Can Donald Trump be a unifier? Can he stop talking about the rigged election from 4 years ago, which was not rigged, for the record? Okay, can we stop talking about that and be a forward moving, administration? Can you also explain what the hell this Project 2025 is that Democrats keep bringing up? Can you also get moderate on women's on not healthcare, but on women's rights? Because again, if there's one ace in the hole for Democrats to win election on, and they pretty much held on in the midterm for 2 years ago for the same reason, is women's rights. Can he become a bigger moderate when it comes to women's rights? Because I will say to his credit, based on the rhetoric he's put out in the last year on the whole thing of women's rights, he's been more moderate than most of the people that ran for president on his side of the aisle. More moderate than Ron DeSantis, more moderate than even Nikki Haley, more moderate than you picked it. He was the most moderate one of all. But can you now sell that to an electorate who may not like Joe Biden, may not want for Joe Biden, but that issue is the one that you may lose him on? Because remember, he got shellacked by women in 2020. You got to bring him back. The women's demographic is a huge demographic that he got slacked in the last election. So those are the things I'm looking for. I was hoping, maybe, I'm not going to promise anything, but I was hoping to do a reaction podcast to the debate after the debate. I'm not going to promise anything because I don't even know if my wife will let me record after, because she don't want my attention. But we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to watching this. I'm looking forward to watching this. All right. Reviews, and more reviews. I got a couple things to review here on the podcast. First thing I'll review is a documentary I watched called No Easy Victories. It's a documentary focused on the 1994 New York Rangers. It's on ESPN. It's kind of an ESPN Plus production, not necessarily 30 for 30. It's focused on obviously on the 94 team, but the storyline they used the storyline based on a cop who got shot and was paralyzed back in 1986 or 87, I think it was. And he was a diehard Rangers fan, and he's go to all the games, and the team got him got close, and he go to all the games, and they even named a team award after him. He went to every game, so he passed away a couple of years ago. It's a great documentary. Some great memories, obviously. Like I said, I was 14 when the Rangers won the last Stanley Cup in '94. That was a fantastic a documentary. I was really that's very emotional too, also, because the kid that shot him, young a teenager, I think it was like 16 years old, and he forgave him for everything, and all that. It was a very good story definitely a tearjerker on my end. But it's very good stuff on ESPN Plus. No easy victories on the 1994 New York Rangers. I also watch on ESPN as well too, documentary that Stephen A. Smith put together called Up for Debate. It was a 3-part documentary, very short actually. Episodes about 24 minutes each, 30 minutes each. Talking about the ever changing, just basically the timeline of sports media, how things have changed in the landscape in the last, since 1980. Really, they go back to 1980 when the start of ESPN, and it was very good stuff. It's chopped up 3 different parts. Where the media was back then with newspapers, and then television became a thing in the late 80s, early 90s, and then from that to embrace debate and the Skip Bayless era, and then of course now we get to where we are now. It was very good, very very good, very put together very very well. That's another one on ESPN Plus as well. And then I told you guys also I did start watching Cobra Kai. I am now on season 3. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am knocking myself as to why it took me so long to watch this fucking show. This show is an easy watch. It's a great storyline. The cool thing about this show too, also, when you watch Karate Kid, obviously the 3 installments. There's obviously in those movies, there's a clear-cut good guy in Daniel's son, and there's a clear-cut bad guy in Kreese, and obviously Johnny Lawrence, all that. But when you watch this story and you watch this TV show, which is based on Cobra Kai, based on the dojo that John Kreese used to own, that Johnny Lawrence ends up taking over and reopening and whatnot. You realize there's a lot more nuance. You find yourself rooting for Johnny Lawrence, his story. Because remember, he becomes an adult. Obviously, after Karate Kid 3 in 1989, you don't see anything Karate Kid related for almost 40 years. So you have a situation now where has this life now where he just falls apart. He's virtually a deadbeat dad, and living in this has no connections to today. Very very dated, very old. This alcohol issues, the whole 9, and you see him trying to get out of that rut. Meanwhile, Daniel's son is now a successful, car dealership owner, and makes a lot of money and living a very privileged life. And you find yourself rooting for Johnny instead of Daniel's son. Like you don't mind Daniel, but Daniel is a bit more of a privileged guy. Johnny is the underdog here, and I love the nuance in the storylines. That's what captures me in this show. Is that the nuance, that there's so much to root for in the show. Even John Kreese, who comes back in the show in season 2, John Kreese, who was as evil as hell as it can be, comes back, and he's in his 70s at this point now. They in season 3, you finally get the backstory why he was the way he was and why he is the way he is. And they make him somewhat of a sympathetic character, somewhat. So the show has really touched on a lot of things of like the theme for me so far. And look, I'm only season 3. There's a couple episodes in season 3. I think the theme for me for the show is that not everything is what it seems, and also not everybody is a bad person if you get to understand who they are. And you would think that John Lawrence is a bad guy watching the movies. John Lawrence is not a bad guy. He just there's a lot of misunderstanding. The theme of the show is misunderstanding throughout the show. Not just the adults, but also the kids too. So I'm really loving the show. I'm knocking myself. I was telling my friend today that I don't understand how it took so long to watch the show. I'm knocking myself for that. But the last season, I think it's season 7. It's coming out in July, so I'm hoping to get caught up with this show before the start of season 7, so I can watch it with the rest of the public, of course. But yeah, I'm loving this show. I'm knocking myself again for not starting the show earlier than I did, and that's just that. So those are the things so far I've watched in the last couple weeks. All right, before we get out of here, we're going to read off this week's question of the week, QOTW. And the question this week we dropped, and we got a lot of nice responses on here, especially on Facebook. The question of the week was, what are you starting to dislike as you get older? What are you starting to dislike as you get older? So I'm going to start our good friend Big Jim first. This is a knock at me, obviously, but his response was, people who have bad catchphrases like, quote, "Don't play with your food." That is obviously a dig at me because I am a pretty big cliche guy when it comes to social media, for fun, of course. And I always like to use that term of teams whenever they, good teams that lose to bad teams because they play with their food. I will always say that. So he hates that. So he said that to knock at me. That's a good one, Jim. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. All right, just some more responses here. So Jordana Nunez says people under 30. Yeah. My old friend Drew DeLulo says, as cliche as it is, engaging with people outside of my terms, which is why I truck for a living. He also added as a bonus, I also can't touch alcohol anymore unless it's a very rare bourbon to go with a cigar, usually once a year on average, maybe even less. I like that answer. And again, you get older, you watch your health. I know Drew's turning 40 very soon. Personal friend of mine, also my former frontman of my band I used to be in way back when. So I totally get that. I totally understand that. All right, let's get some more responses here. We got a nice response here. Tokyo Jameson says, ignorance is harder swallowed as I'm aging. That is present in so much. That is so true, TJ. So true. Kelly Shane says, this would be a long list. Thank you. Brenda Wallace says, all these fucking side effects. I agree. Totally agree. Axa Alvarez says, health issues and having to deal with health insurance. Companies who would rather take your monthly premium and deny exams, tests ordered by doctors with the excuse, quote, it's not medically necessary. I agree. And people, look, I'm pro capitalism, but sometimes some of the things in this country sometimes pisses me off. Money first over people. I can't stand that. Andrew Miller says, politics, honestly, more local than federal. Dumb fucks. Working in retail, pharmacy, I like to toss up to both doctors and insurance companies. Also, how frustrating it is to grow a podcast without putting money into it and or trying to sell out to a big name. Man, that I absolutely relate to you, brother. I really do. Aaron Coley says, chin here. Chin here. And that's funny. Lori Brighter says, noise. I crave quiet. That and eating popcorn and drinking soda at the movies is delicious. Makes me feel miserable. I can relate. The foods we eat that I enjoy in the moment, and then 5 minutes later, I feel like absolute shit. Ice cream has been that for me lately. Can't stand it. Jack McNeil says, work. I'm ready to retire. So am I, girl. So am I. Megan Hume says, getting out of bed and sometimes feeling like I'm 90. People having to work and trying to understand certain sayings or how everything is abbreviated. I basically feel like my parents did with us. That's so true. There's things that my sons say all the time, that I only now know because they keep repeating it. Like I didn't know what Riz was probably about a year ago. I'm like, what is Riz? It means charisma, but I didn't know that. Things of that nature. Our own Rob the Genius says, dishonest people. Not that I liked them before, but they used to be an annoyance. Now I straight up dislike them. Yep. Your patience as you get older runs thin, and you're 50 years old. We discussed on the podcast before. You have time for that shit. Well, anybody no time for that. Jamie Feather says, making decisions, examples, dinner, clothes, etc. And guess what, Jamie? It doesn't get any easier. It gets harder and harder. I want things to be simple. Ginny Smythe says, ankle pain, and the stupidity of young people. That I can relate to. Absolutely. I hate to say it, man, but sometimes young people piss me off. Senior Peaches says, what is in or in style? I used to love it as a young adult or teenager. Now I don't give a fuck or care. Hate it when someone says that's not in style or so last year. Whatever. Yep, I hate it too. Can't stand it. Dina Pickle says, working to pay bills. Oh yeah, hate it. And that never goes away till you die. Lauren Castis, my girl Lauren, luscious. Shout out to you. She says driving. Interesting. It's funny. I don't mind driving, but I have a love-hate with driving. I do. If I'm going on vacation, that's one thing. But driving every day to do this for the sake of driving, nah. Bobby Hudson says tip culture. Interesting. Tip culture. All right. Carol Gerdo says lies. Lying, it's so common everywhere. Also, rudeness of others toward others. I agree. And unfortunately, that's something I hated even as a child. Joe Franchino says people. Yeah. People's patience now, man. I get it. Dana Niece says crowds. Yeah, crowds. I mean, it depends on the situation. I don't mind crowds depending on the situation. I love going to concerts and I love doing all those things, those kind of things. So I get it. But yeah. Cynthia Rogers says inflation, rising cost of living. Don't we all, girl? Don't we all? Giro Coley says podcast. Just kidding. This is crowds. My sister Christina Seaweed says bullshit. No time to waste on drama or craziness. Totally agree with you, girl. 100%. Two more here, or one more actually here. Enrique HLD says people as well. I mean, yeah, people can piss you off, man. I totally get it. See any more here before we I don't mind is pain. As I get older, my the aching my back and all that, and I hate living regret. You get older, you look at the things in the past that you regret. And you can't do that. You made decisions, you live with it, and you move forward, and you embrace the new days. So that's what I would look at as things I started like go. It's just living regret. I hate living regret. I hate it. I like to move forward and think positively going forward. So that's just that. Anyway, that was it for today's podcast. Again, dated. It is dated 26th of June, but we dropped this on 27th of June. So, but I am on X/Twitter at EJ Christian 7 on Earnestly Podcast across all podcast catchers. We haven't done a wrestling retro podcast in over a month. I'm hoping to get an episode in the can very soon. Like I said, I'm taking it easy in the summer. I don't want to go too crazy. But again, look out for the next episode coming up this weekend. I recorded the Sopranos 25-year anniversary special. Which we're dropping that episode on Sunday. Right in the can, ready to go. On Sunday, it'll be out for y'all to all listen to and see and watch all that. But other than that, tune in to the next one, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Love you guys. God bless y'all. And until the next one, later.